Hi and welcome back. In this video we're going to look at some quick tips for the snare drum. With snare, a lot of the energy in the fatness of the sound tends to be between the 120 to 300 Hz range. If we listen to this snare solo, you can see it's quite a strong peak here, around 200 Hz. So generally between 120 and 300 Hz you'll find that kind of real punchiness. That's the fatness of the snare, and that's what that tends to come from. You'll also notice there's a bit of energy down here, which, as we saw with the kick, we probably don't really need to be there, so you can probably get away with high-pass filtering the snare. And you'll notice that we don't even really notice that much of a difference until you get up quite high, so you could just try maybe under 150. Depends again on your snare, how deep the snare is and how much you want that deepness there. Now, as I said, the fatness tends to be naturally around that region anyway, so there's not a lot of reason to boost it. But if it's not coming through, then again, you might want to try cutting something else in that region. So try soloing the snare with other instruments. As I said with the kick, that region between 120 and 300 Hz tends to be a very busy region for a lot of instruments. So you can try it with a number of different instruments. Guitar's a good one, vocals. See if they can afford to lose a bit in that region, and that might bring forward some of the fatness of the snare. And always remember as well, if you cut in any sound, then you're basically reducing the volume of that sound, particularly if you're cutting in an area where there's a lot going on. So what that does is then free you up to boost the overall level of that sound. So in other words, it gives you more headroom back. So, for example, here we've used a high-pass filter to take out some of those low frequencies. That means we've also now lowered the overall level of the snare, so we can now afford to turn it up a little bit, either by using the gain on the EQ plugin itself or by using the mixer. So now I'm moving up a little bit. I'll just use another filter here. Around the 900 Hz region is where we tend to get that boxiness. Maybe just sort of around that region, so maybe down as far as 700 up to 1K. So if you find the snare sounds quite boxy, it might be an idea to try cutting in that region. Maybe using a slightly higher Q setting so it's a more specific cut. Going above that, the crispness or detail of the snare tends to be in the 3 to 5 kilohertz range. Now again, I'm just boosting here just to demonstrate. I wouldn't actually do this. Again, this might be a situation where you could try cutting something else to allow that crispness to come through. And then moving further up to the 9 or 10 kilohertz range, somewhere around there, you get that snap. Again, I'm not necessarily suggesting that you boost here. It just is one area to give some attention to and maybe try cutting something else. Bearing in mind you're going to be trying to mix with hi-hats, cymbals, rides, all of which will have a lot of energy around that range. So you might be able to try, for example, cutting cymbals, hi-hats in that area, and that might allow some of the snap of the snare to come forward a bit. Okay, we'll leave it there for snare. Thanks for watching.